Here are some of the best watches for under £1,000. We've got sports watches, we've got dress watches, we've got field watches. The nice thing about this list video is that none of the brands have paid to take part. However, this video is actually sponsored by Clean My Mac, an amazing app that I use to help my Mac perform at its best. But I'll tell you about Clean My Mac later on. Within each section, I'm going to be listing the watches within price order, so starting off with the cheapest within that little category, and then moving on to the most expensive, topping off at £1,000. Let's start off with the biggest section, or perhaps the most popular section, and that's sports watches. First up, we have the Elliott Brown. This is the Holton GMT. Elliott Brown is a small British watchmaker, and maybe you haven't heard of them, but they've made quite a bit of a mark for themselves. And although this isn't the prettiest of watches, the whole thing has been designed around functionality and doing a purpose. They've been pretty successful with that concept to the point that this watch, actually not this watch, the non-GMT version of this watch, it's a watch that is actually issued to the British Special Forces, the SBS, the Special Boat Service. And I don't mean that in a way that this is done in collaboration with the SBS. When you join the SBS, this is a watch that you're given as part of your kit. I don't think you need any other accolade than that. The case is water resistant down to 200 meters. On this version, we have a GMT bezel, which is a unidirectional, which is a bit odd, but it's a unidirectional GMT bezel. We have a tiny date window down at 4:30, and then we have this little arrow that represents the GMT time. The crown, as you can see, is down at 4 o'clock. I always find that a bit odd. That will never sit right with me in my head. But again, this has been designed for a purpose, and the idea is that if you bend your wrist back, you don't get smashed with a crown in the back of your hand. The movement inside is a Seikko NH34. It's an automatic movement, has 24 joules, and has a power reserve of 41 hours. The price of this is £895. Now for a bit more of a traditional watch, in the sense that it has a crown at 3 o'clock. This is the Christopher Ward C60 Trident Pro 300. This is clearly a very solid, more affordable version of the Omega Seamaster. And with this being a more traditional watch, this could be your one watch, what a lot of people call a one watch collection, which doesn't make sense because you can't have a collection of one thing, but this could be the watch that you have and you don't need anything else. When it comes to bang for buck, it's hard to beat Christopher Ward on the package that you get. You get a lot of watch for your money. This is a 40mm wide case, 11.3mm thick, it has a massive 300 meters of water resistance, and the bezel insert is ceramic. It's powered by the Sleater SW200, which has a 38-hour power reserve, not the biggest power reserve, and this costs £915. If you're a big fan of the Omega Seamaster, this will tick so many of the boxes. It doesn't have a movement performing to the same level as the Omega. It doesn't have the finishing to the same level as the Omega, but that's why it doesn't cost anywhere near as much as an Omega Seamaster. I feel like this would tick the box if this is within your budget. Next up, we have a slightly different watch, a little bit more of an interesting, maybe a bit of a left field watch. I guess at a glance it looks quite boring, but that's kind of my taste, is very conservative, boring watches. This is the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition Automatic. Now the bezel is slightly different from most bezeled watches. You either have a GMT bezel or a dive bezel or countdown bezel. This is a compass bezel, not quite as useful as the other bezels, but you can still use it to time things, and you never know. You might be stranded somewhere and need a very rough, inaccurate compass. The case on this is stainless steel. The water resistance is 100 meters, and the movement inside is Hamilton's H10 movement, which is a highly modified ETA movement. It has a massive power reserve of 80 hours. Now the price on the bracelets kind of pushes this over the budget of £1,000. When you buy it on a strap, you can get it for £920. When you buy it on a bracelet, you can get it for £1,035. Now I promised you we're going to get a bit more interesting, and we're going to start to get interesting right now. We're going to look at some dress watches. We've got 3 dress watches, and to start off with, we're going to be checking out Baltic. Baltic is one of those brands that I just feel oozes coolness. They're not doing anything groundbreaking because they're taking a lot of their design cues and stylings from traditional watches, but it comes down to how they execute it, their use of space and the way that they balance the design out with the case design, but also with the dial design. This is the Baltic Mr. Roulette in blue. It does have technically lower specs than the previous watches that we've spoken about, but then the price represents that. This is also a much smaller watch at 36mm, but for a dress watch, I feel like that just works. It's kind of in line with the styling of it being a dress watch. Now the movement aside is really interesting. This is a Chinese-made micro rotor movement. Making a micro rotor movement is a lot more complex than having a massive oscillating weight on the back, because you have to squeeze all of that mechanics into part of the movement itself, rather than sitting on top of the movement. This movement is called the Hangzhou Cow 5000A. It has 33 jewels inside. It has complex finishing, although this is machine done complex finishing, and I kind of feel like that kind of takes away from the watch itself because it's all superficial. They're high-end techniques, but not executed to a high-end level, and I feel like that does take away a bit from the watch. This watch is significantly cheaper than all the previous watches I've spoken about at 545 euros. Now we're going to jump up a little bit in price, and this is going to be from a brand that you probably haven't heard of. I certainly hadn't heard of until the whole debacle, car crash, shitstorm, when Patek launched the Cubitus. I disliked the Patek Cubitus when they launched it. I got hands-on with it. It's been quite a few months now, and I still dislike the watch. I feel like the proportions are just wrong. Because of the failure and the controversy around that launch, Benjamin James, another British micro brand, kind of got quite a bit of recognition. He was able to create a watch that kind of has the elements of what the Cubitus perhaps could have been or should have been. Just a well-balanced, squared, braceleted watch. The one on the salmon dial, I think, is absolutely stunning. It's a stainless steel case. It's 31mm by 40mm. Now, 31mm sounds tiny, but when you're talking about square or rectangle watches, you need to take the measurement of the height. That gives you a better idea of what the watch would feel like on the wrist. The movement inside is a Japanese Miyota movement, the 9039. This is an automatic movement, 24 jewels, and has 42 hours of power reserve. This watch costs £648. While we're on the topic of talking about things that are well designed from brands that we might not have heard of, Clean My Mac, the sponsor of this video, is a beautifully designed and easy to use application that does exactly what it says. It cleans your Mac, and it's so reliable and such high quality that Apple themselves have featured it as one of their top 25 apps for 2025. We all download loads of content, and sometimes we're unaware of it. Wasted space on your Mac can slow it down. On my Mac, it managed to find over 1,300 temporary files in Chrome. Thankfully, Clean My Mac makes it very easy to locate these files, help me keep on top of the space on my Mac, and decide if I want to get rid of them or not. If you want an easy way to keep your Mac clean, try Clean My Mac for a free 7-day trial and use my link for 20% off. Check out Clean My Mac. Now let's move on to a very clean watch. This is a dress watch from Frederick Constant, a highly underrated watch brand who, for their design, I feel really punches above their price point. This is a dress watch, but it also has a sporty element to it. And so again, it's one of those watches that I kind of feel like it could just be your one fancy watch. You could use this in all occasions and it would suit all occasions as well. This is a Frederick Constant Index Automatic. There's quite a few variants of this watch. There's a white dial, there's a black dial. I feel like the white dial, although I like the design of it, I feel like it kind of airs more on the sporty side of the watch, pushing it a bit more away from the dressy look. And the black dial, I feel like is just the opposite. I feel like it's going too formal, too conservative, too dressy. The blue dial, although it is a subdued blue, a deep blue, a dark blue, it makes just the dial, the watch, just that little bit more interesting without it being too overly conservative. So I feel like it's just a nicer mix of dressy with a little touch of sportiness to it. This is a 40mm wide case, 10.2mm thick, has 20mm lugs, and it has a water resistance of 50 meters. On a strap, this costs £995, just under that £1,000 marker. Next up, we have 3 field watches. This is my favorite category. A field watch is essentially a simple, low complication, highly legible, rugged watch. First up, and this is the first and the only Seikko that we have in this whole lineup, this is a Seikko Prospects Deep Lake Alpinist. I love that textured deep blue dial and then that seconds hand. The case is stainless steel, 38mm wide. It's 12.9mm thick, which is quite thick for a 38mm watch. The lug to lug measurement is 46.2mm. This watch has got 200 meters of water resistance, and it also has sapphire crystal on top of it. The movement side is, of course, a Seikko movement, automatic Seikko movement. The 6R35. Has 24 joules, has an impressive 70 hours of power reserve, and is accurate from -15 to +25 seconds a day. This watch costs £690. Next up, we have a more interesting watch, although it's kind of more simplified. This is still a field watch. Of course, this is from Serakica, the reference 6190. This is kind of a fashionable, perhaps, interpretation or a minimalist interpretation of a field watch. We have a very chunky case, very minimalist dial. And although there's 3 colors available, we've got a black, a white, and this deep gray. It's the deep gray that's really caught my eye. It's kind of like a dull browny gray. They call it storm gray. The case is also 38mm, slightly thinner at 10.4mm thick, a better 20mm lugs. This also has 200m of water resistance, but the impressive bit is the movement inside. Remember, this is sub £1,000, and this movement is a COSC certified movement, a legitimate chronometer. This movement is the M100 COSC certified, and it's actually a SOPROD movement. 25 joules, it's got 42 hours of power reserve, and as I mentioned, this is COSC certified, which means it's been verified by a third party to be highly accurate. For a sub £1,000 watch, this is highly impressive because it costs money to certify these watches. This watch costs £925. Now for the final field watch, and I've bent the rules a little bit here. We've gone over budget by just a smidge, but I couldn't not include this watch because the thing is fantastic. It's by Farah. I've got 2 watches from Farah. We've got the Farah Pembroke 2 and the Lomond 2. They're all part of Farah's field watch collection. Kind of similar to Baltic. There's nothing groundbreaking or necessarily new that these guys are doing. All the little elements within the watch can be traced back to being very traditional design elements or features. But the way it's executed is what makes these watches work so well. This kind of modern interpretation, I guess the colourful side of it adds to the modernness or gives it a more modern feel, despite the fact all the elements are very traditional. Just like all the other field watches, there's a bit of a trend here. This is 38mm wide, 11.7mm thick, have a 40mm lug to lug, and the lugs themselves are 20mm wide. It has a decent water resistance of 150 meters. The movement inside is a Sleater SW221. This has a date function, a pointer date function around the outside of the dial. It's of course an automatic movement. It has 26 joules, 41 hours of power reserve. As I mentioned, this is over budget. This costs £1,095, but to make that feel a bit better, it does come with an extra strap. Now, I think all of these watches are awesome, but if I was to choose my favorite from each of these categories, from the sports category, I'd have to go with the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition. From the dress watch, I'd have to go with the Baltic Mr. Roulette in the blue dial. And then of course, from the field watch, I'd go with the Farah Pembroke 2. Guys, I want to know your thoughts, one, on my choices, but I also want to know your thoughts on what I've missed out from the sub £1,000 category. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you like the style of this video, then hit the subscribe button down there and that little bell icon so you get notifications when I drop a new video. If you're on Instagram, give me a follow at BarkandJack. If you want to check out our watch straps and watch accessories, jump over to barkandjack.com, and don't forget to check out Clean My Mac. I think that's it. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.